Okay, do it. Next. So this really spoke to me. I think there are a lot of high emotions around this topic. And I thought one of the strengths that we have is our congregation. And so I loved this quote. In the shelter of each other, in the shelter of our lives, we are open, we are dreaming, we are hopeful, we are wise. Next. You have to keep, oh dear. The entire thing, can you close that thing with the accent? The entire slide says, there we go. The church was birthed for mission. From the very beginning, the instructions Jesus gave to the disciples was to go out and preach the word. It was born for mission. So we are called to be being for a purpose, owning our mission with clarity, with passion, with purpose, and with intention is what keep our church and the church alive, vital, and relevant. Who could we be in the world? Next. Next. And are we addressing what in our community breaks God's heart? Any ideas of who we could be? Keep those questions in mind. We'll return to them. Next. So, can you easily articulate the mission of our congregation? I'll give you a minute. Is it welcoming new members in order to stay viable? Is it action and service oriented more than just writing checks? We are the hands and feet of Christ. Are we doing that? Are we about being in relationship with God, our community, or one another? Sam.
I think the history of our church has mostly been I think this is an important theme of this book is mission. And I think historically, our mission has principally been to seek justice, whether it was from people in El Salvador to people from South Sudan to gay and lesbian issues. And so I think our history is justice, but how we actualize it are mostly what we're doing now is just signing
checks,
right. or issues that we want to have government or some other entity take responsibility for, and applauding those efforts, but we need to find something maybe in justice where we can have an active role beyond just supporting that and participating in. I mean, the justice team, I'm sure, has marched and been in protests, joining in protests and things like that. But I think if we do justice, we have to figure out something that's more active, it seemed to me.
I agree. Kim.
Yeah, what really struck me about the first 3 chapters, which is all I've done so far, was the idea of mission and articulating it in a specific way, and that the churches that did that were vibrant and brought people in. And I think part of the grief for us is a lot of these churches that are going downhill don't have a $6 million endowment. And And it sounded like us when they were saying a lot of these churches are just trying to make sure that they get the building and the minister and, and keep the money. And a lot of them weren't sitting on as much money as we were. So my sense is we really need to think more about spending money and not just worrying about making sure we don't take too much out of the endowment because we're strangling ourselves. We're losing people, and there's so much good we could do by using some of that money to take our history and start putting it into action instead of what
I agree.
Sam said about, we're writing checks and all of that stuff we did, we're not doing
Mhm.
now.
I agree. Thank you. Carolyn. Oh, you're just, okay, okay. Any other ideas about what you can say about our current mission?
Just a quickie, if I've scribed something that isn't what you've intended to say, just shout that out, please.
Sally?
I'm not really sure that we have a stated mission at this point in time.
I would agree.
So I think that's a piece that's lacking, and I follow Barb Simmons, who does the food distribution for Spiritus Christi, and every week they go out and distribute food, and it just makes my heart sing. And I understand why people get excited about something like that because it's putting feet to words.
Yes, I agree. That's good, Sally. Thank you very much. That's the way I feel right now. We are stuck in the past of what our mission was, and I don't think we're clear about what our mission is now. And as a member of the justice team, as is Grania, we're struggling. It's a very small team, and several of us have had things come up in this past year, which has made it really hard to move forward. And we need bodies, we need ideas that maybe, I think one of the things we're doing right now is using eConnect, but I don't think that's enough. I think we need to be the hands and feet of Christ. Next, David. Go ahead. So for many churches, and perhaps for ours, what gets done, the mission has become, for many churches, what gets done is what is happening after the bills are paid. And I do believe that's probably what's happening here. Go ahead. So this is not my quote. This is John's quote. It has been my experience of late that too many churches have slipped into an undeclared mission that can be reduced to this: save our church. And I have to admit, I sit in the sanctuary and I'm like, save our church. And I'm trying to get around my head around and my heart around what we need to do. So are our session meetings focused on mission or saving our church? There's some session members here. Sticking to the agenda, right? But does the agenda include mission or more about the church building, the church staff? So last Saturday for Cliff's ordination, I was here to help set that up. And I went up to the second floor and there were people from the Eastern Service Workers Association or group making tamales for a fundraiser. Hochstein was in the building. Children were in the building. People were in the building for Cliff's ordination. It was like a beehive of happiness. It was just, it felt so joyful and like it used to be. So one of the things that I'm wondering is, could our church building serve our mission? And what would that look like? So can we make our church more open to organizations taking into, I can't remember the word, that we understand that there's cost involved with that. There are staff involved with that. There are building costs involved in that. But could our church become a center of spiritual and justice activity? Kim?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think that's a great idea. And also what would, like Sally was saying about going out and giving food to people and how it made her heart sing. I think if we could find a couple of, opening up the church and find a couple of groups that do stuff that we want to partner with. So we're up there making the tamales, not just empowering other groups to do it, but partnering with them, because that will allow us, rather than, being more of a center for others, that we're a part of that.
Oh, I
we
like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Any other ideas or comments?
I echo those sentiments as well. We have the building, we should use the building and let others use it to the joy of Christ, because we have this and we have an endowment. And if there's a way to balance all that and or be open with our mission for the utility of the building in various ways, maybe we haven't thought of, that would be a joy, I think.
And I think finding ways to collaborate with people who are here.
Mhm.
The Spiritus Christi,
The Quakers.
the Quakers. Yeah.
Just one thing to add to what you said in terms of what we need is church members volunteering.
Yes. Yes. Because we always have so much fun when we do stuff together. David?
Marie Gibson had a few comments in the chat section. She has said 4 times, first, part of our mission up to this point is to pastor one another and take care of ourselves. But I think we are at the point now to move forward. We are already an interfaith center. Partnership is very important.
Other ideas? Sally?
There is the very beginnings of rumblings of talking with the Quakers about the presentation that they did about RIDC, and possibly using the Allen Street building or the Institute building for some of the work that they're doing. So there's definitely possibilities out there. And so finding what we feel is going to be a good fit, I think would be awesome.
I do too.
Elaine Johnson and I have started attending the Quaker Earth Care Witness. So a sort of joint environmental concerns between the two congregations, and
Wonderful.
more like that I'm sure could happen.
Yes. Yeah. Wonderful.
And Elaine just added, when we were involved with Family Promise, our members were very committed and showed up.
Mhm. Yeah. Next slide.
I Nancy,
Oh, Sina, I'm
recent-
sorry.
I recently heard the presentation by the woman who's the, I don't know, director of the mission, one of the missions of Spiritus Christi, the Cameron Ministries.
Uh-huh.
Is that what they call it?
Yes,
And my goodness, the things that they do
yes.
are enormous. I mean, it might even be good to have her do a forum at some point, because she was very much interested in trying to recruit more people who would participate with them and
That's good.
possibly join some of their missions.
Right.
And I think some has happened in the past. I'm not
Yes,
positive, but I'm going back a decade or so.
at least.
The jail master. Okay.
I actually did my field work there when I was in seminary, and it was a really ragtag joint. It was, but we did feed people. That was our major mission, was to provide a hot lunch for people every day. And we fed people and we had clothes, but we didn't have any programming to speak of. And now they do. It's just amazing to see the place. Anybody else? So how did we get here, David? Why are we facing this? Is it our fault? Is it just a problem about Doopsy? Well, not exactly. So we're facing declining birth weight rates. There's an increased focus on careers, but I don't want to put that all on women who are now working instead of having babies. It's really, family planning is a lot different than it was before. And there's growing access to family planning. There are also limited support networks. I don't know if you're on one of those neighborhood chat things, but there's always somebody saying, I need somebody right away for daycare for my 2-year-old. And I think, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I'm not in that position of having to find daycare. So currently, the average American woman, this sounded weird to me, has about 1.6 children. I can't imagine what 0.6 of a child would look like, down from 3 in 1950, and significantly below the replacement rate of 2.1 children needed to sustain a stable population. We also have the cost of maintaining property, David. For many churches, I'm not pointing any fingers. Can you go back? For many churches, maintaining the buildings has become the mission. If you have an opportunity to look at our budget, it's very eye-opening. But could our congregation walk away from this building and thrive? Deep silence. That's a hard question, isn't it? I don't want to walk away from this building. But that might be one of the things we have to consider. Okay. So those are a couple of reasons for the reality of church decline. And there's another, David. Post-modernity. And I had no idea what he was talking about at first. So here's a statement from his book. Many postmoderns do not believe that there is such a thing as universal truth. In other words, what is true for you may or may not be true for me. Every person in the room has life experiences that make them wise. They're all different. They're all wise in their own way. David? So I subscribe to Father Richard Rohr's emails and love the things that he leaves me with every day. And I loved this one. To have faith, to grow toward love, union, salvation, or enlightenment, we must be moved from order to disorder, then ultimately to reorder. But first, we have some work to do. John talks about grieving, believing, perceiving. And there has been an undercurrent of conversation about the fact that we have not really had an opportunity to grieve what was. So go ahead. Churches aren't just called to die. They're called to believe in resurrection and hope, which means I think that we need to name what we've lost, name what was, and then move through the hope to resurrection. Go ahead, David. Go ahead. I'm not, and this is again from the book, I'm not sure we can adequately and properly grieve unless we name what it is our eyes are seeing, our hearts are feeling, and our ears are hearing. But we don't grieve, however, as those who have no hope. We need strategic thinking about what that hope is. And I see a bunch of strategic thinkers, both online and in this room this morning. And how to be the church with less. So, what do you miss? What are you grieving? There is a lot of articulated hope in going back to normal. Is that possible? How do we respond to that hope in our context? Is it possible to reorient our congregation to hope for what lies at the end of all the diminishment? So what are you missing? Grania.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Members who have left our church, some of whom were very long-term members, for varieties of reasons, moving, passing away,
Mhm.
disagreements. So that's a major thing for me. I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Children.
Mm-hmm.
We had a growing sort of Sunday school happening with 2 or 3 families who are no longer here, at least 2 or 3. And I miss that. I mean, whenever somebody comes with a child and they make noise in service, I turn around and smile and they're looking at like, oh, don't make noise, don't make noise. And it's like, that's one of the most joyous things to hear in a service.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Just a quick add-on to what Grania said as far as loss of members. I think also some of that was all the reasons you mentioned, but I'm just going to add a few. And members not feeling that they can make a difference and having there be pain associated with what they feel from DUPSI.
Kim, did you have a?
I think one of the things I'm grieving, aside from what everyone has mentioned, is what COVID did to us. And I think sometimes we forget that that was a major part when all the other stuff was going on as well. And I think we got in the habit of not being physically present with each other. And I think Zoom is great. And a lot of people, it affords them an opportunity to connect when it's difficult to get there. But actually doing things together, both for fun and also like what you were saying, having a food cupboard or engaged in a piece of missional work that requires physicality rather than thinking about things or signing, that is something I miss that we used to have.
Mhm. And I miss all church dinners. And we tried to fix that last week, and many of you were there, if not all of you. And it was just the feeling in the room. You could just feel it, how good it felt to be together. It was palpable. What else are you missing, Sam?
Oh, I think we miss our pastors. Pat, Kate, and the people who have come here to preach have been super, but we don't have that continuity. Lori, of course, applied it, but she was an interim, and that her time flew by, in my view. So we're still looking for a pastor, and that's a challenge.
I see some deacons in the room, and I know there's one online. What did the deacons miss? Anybody? Carol?
Our meetings were held here and we ate. Eating is a big thing for Presbyterians, very big thing.
Eating together, yeah.
And I think back, we had the huge Mardi Gras party. It was huge. The dining room was full of people. David Roman was the king. I think my daughter might have been the queen. We had food that was purple, gold, and green. I don't know. So that sort of thing. As far as the deacons, we are paying attention to our special needs persons.
Mhm.
We used to have a whole list of people that we were responsible to at least reach out to once in a while, but now we're down to one special care person.
Mhm.
I don't know how different that would be. When you think about some of the people that have left and have they gone anywhere else, I was absent from this church for a very long time because, first of all, my husband he very disagreed with a whole lot of things, and so that kept us away. But then my daughter was a swimmer. We had swim meets on Sundays.
Mhm.
That was, it paid her way to college. She got a
Yeah.
full scholarship.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
for swimming, but I think it's not just what the church isn't doing, it's what the other people are doing on Sundays.
Yeah. Sort of the makeup of society of
Right.
having sports, a lot of it is sports on
Yeah.
Sunday,
Mhm.
diminishes what we can do. Helen, do you have any? No, no. Okay. Anybody online? Okay. Kim?
I was just going to say, or we could branch out and not just be Sunday focused because of what people's lives are, but, have some groups that meet on other nights and I know Zoom is here to stay, and sometimes that's good, but I think we really need to commit to in-person groups
a good idea.
availability as well as Zoom.
Yeah. Carol?
I'm a member of the new couples club. My husband and I joined that. It was a very vibrant couples club. All these things started out at Central with Dr. Adams saying we need social groups. And I think maybe we are the only one that is functioning, but we are down to a tiny few. And it's been people passing away. We pick up people who don't drive anymore.
Right. And can I ask, with the couples club, can widows and widowers or single people be part of the club?
Absolutely. I'm single, I'm widowed. Yeah, I mean, it would be great. I would love to see anybody else join it. We meet in people's homes and, we used to have wonderful speakers that would do something for a given meeting, but now, right now, we even canceled this February meeting because Fran McDowell wasn't feeling well. We were going to meet at their house and have a meal. And March, whether we're going to have a meeting or not, we don't know.
Mhm.
I had an idea for a speaker, but to talk about Mount Hope Cemetery, but
Mm, mhm.
it would be embarrassing to ask someone to come and
Right,
talk to
yeah.
6 of us. So that,
Has there been any thought about changing the name of the group? to
oh, we
some-
don't even call it. It's just the couples club. So, I mean, that's,
As a single person, I wouldn't think I would go to that.
Yeah,
because
me
it's called
too.
couple.
but I mean, we don't even put our meetings out in the calendar. So it's like, I don't know. We could talk about that in our group. I mean,
Yeah.
how to change the name and how, I mean, I would love to have other people come. It's just a nice
Right.
thing. The
Yeah.
other thing is the clock is ticking. We're all older.
I hear you.
Can't stop.
Yeah. Well, I'm part of the Psalms group that meets on Tuesday morning, and it was the Psalms group. And then we realized that we started doing the lectionary. And we decided to change the name to Psalms Plus. So Carol.
Oh, well, that's just one thing. This group has never focused on a theology theme. We have been social with the idea of we are all within the church.
Mhm. Thank you.
Okay, this is going way back, but I really missed the early days of C2 and Sunday morning being excited about going to church and not knowing what to expect. The unpredictability, the new ideas, the interaction, the finding out more about the other people who were present, the music. And this last week we had They'll Know We Are Christians by Our Love. There was lots of music that maybe wasn't that group great musically, I don't know, but in terms of content and meaning. And I don't know how we might regain some of that.
Yeah.
But I was really excited on Sunday
Mhm.
mornings. It was a high point of my week.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love if there are ways we could get some of that
Yeah.
spirit back.
As John and I have been reading this book several times, we've said C2 was
Yeah.
really church 2.5, if
Yeah.
not church 3.0.
Yeah.
And we said, how many people remember that? We knew Bob would,
I
but
do.
yeah, it's been gone a long time and I miss it too.
Yeah. Sally.
I'm just going to say quickly, because our congregation is smaller, what if we had a C2 on another time? So that people could have both and, right? And be excited for two different types of things. Because if we split it, we don't have that many, but we could offer it at another time.
One of the things I miss a lot is the women's group. And I know we still have Sophia's Circle, but we had a women's group who did a lot of things together. We went to movies. We had different people come and speak. We, when I moved to Maryland, they decorated pots for me and planted plants in them, and I took them along. I still have those pots. So I miss that.
Well, the thing that I'm thinking about many of these things is it's all about relationship, and those are sacred to us. Carol.
You may remember when we had Celebration 2 that we had a host of pastors also.
Yes, that's true. Kim.
That was one of the themes in the book is, would you accept someone who does a baptism who isn't ordained clergy? When you were talking about C2, it made me think we've got a lot of really talented, you among them, Nance, folks who could lead, or others who want to, a service. that was designed by and for the people that came there. And it doesn't have to be an ordained minister.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, it surprised me. So I'm now chair of worship. I had no idea what this would involve, particularly without a pastor in place. But the Presbyterians have a lot of rules about what you can do with or without a pastor. And like, we can't do an installation of elders without an ordained pastor in place. So it's, yeah, that's what I thought, Carol.
Yeah, what rules do we want to let go
Yeah.
of? That was in the book.
And how
I'm
many
just saying, I'm not
rules-
saying it was in the book, you know. But what can we let go of?
Well, and how many rules can we let go without bringing down the wrath of presbytery upon us? I mean, we've done that once.
And that was our most vibrant.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Sam,
I wonder if we couldn't combine something like a C2 service with a meal on a Saturday and also do it on a regular basis where we invite people from the community or not, if we increase it to the Rochester metropolitan area, when we
Mhm.
invite anybody who wants to come in, but try to focus some effort to, housing area or how people who live in this sort of catchment area here around
mhm.
the church, and say that it's a free meal on every, once a month or something. It would be paired with a C2 service either before or after.
I like
Something like
that
that.
idea. Lots of ideas. Carol,
I'm just thinking if we had a Saturday service, what would happen on Sunday morning? Would there be anybody coming to the Sunday morning service, or would we go to?
good question.
You don't
Saturday?
know until you do it, right?
Yeah,
No,
good
I would,
question.
I would miss Sunday morning.
Oh, yeah.
We can have longer forums.
Yeah, there
We
you
can
go.
have hour and a half forums on a Sunday morning instead of Sunday service.
It's too early.
Bob,
Week ahead, I'm thinking the Unitarian friend I have says that their church is growing. My wife is sometimes seen on Zoom, Asbury, and says that they seem to be packed. Maybe we need to ask and inquire if we know friends from these groups, what seem to be the attractions. I don't know how Spiritus is doing, but they certainly are in good numbers. I don't know if they're growing or declining. So I think in the week ahead, if we can find out more about these things, South Avenue, I'm not sure they still go by that, are seem to be doing well in terms of mission, even though their numbers are small, without a building.
Mhm.
And they meet at St. John's Meadows
Mhm.
that Sunday afternoon. And so I need to find out more about that for
and I
next
think,
week.
I think the congregations you mentioned, I know people at Spiritus and at Asbury,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of mission going on in
Yeah.
both of those places.
Yes, I was going to say the same thing. They, and partly they can do a lot because they have a lot of members. It's kind of a, it's a perpetuating cycle. But even with Jonathan, there's more to why he left than just the Discord. We were talking and there's a group there for parents with kids. And it's been wonderful for them to develop relationships there as well. So it's not just about what's wrong with our church in terms of internal strife, although that was, part of it, obviously, but about what we can offer or can't offer that other churches are. And maybe, we'd never be an Asbury or a Unitarian because of the numbers. But what we can be, we can, as you said, be intentional and missional about it and get people where it answers a lot of their needs. And it also sounds like a lot of people not only want the missional, but they want the social. too.
Yes. Yeah. Let's go to the next one. So what do we believe in? What are our non-negotiables? What do you believe about the losses, which we will have to take, once sustained signal the end? Do they signal the end? Go ahead, David. It's very important for us to develop a relationship toward the new. Leaders in our church are now called upon to make important and wise decisions about what stays and what goes. Session meetings would look very different. How much change can we tolerate before we say enough? Sally.
One of the things that really struck me about this book was the whole discussion on postmodernity, and how he describes the postmodern generations and what they've, what culture they've lived in, myself included. And it's incredibly true. The idea that people are not looking for the one and only answer and to be told what to do, but that they are looking for that relational, for that ability to impact other people's lives in a positive way and do mission. So, there was talk at one point in time about us not being Presbyterian anymore, but I don't know what that means about our building. Like, probably wouldn't have that anymore. But it is something that we really seriously need to think about, especially in worship services, because from the time I was a child until now, worship services can be and they should not be There should be something like Bob was saying about C2, that you want to be excited about going to church and not just kind of sitting and being passive, especially for postmoderns.
Grania.
I think what Sally said is, and the book says, is really true. And I know my granddaughter is 14, and she asked me if I could take her to a Black church. And I said, sure, I'd be happy to, because I grew up going to an African American church. And so so we started talking about, I said, well, would you like to go to our church sometime too? No, it's just, those kind of churches, they're just not very interesting to her. So I just wanted to add that as a affirmation.
Thank you, Grania. Next slide, David. Oh, unless you had something you were, sorry.
Yeah, there's so many ideas, and thank you, Nancy, for getting us fermenting here. Lots of bubbles. But I think that as I was looking, and I will be presenting next week in a different fashion, but the thing that I worry about with Dorhauer is that I think he describes accurately that the postmodern we can't avoid that. But you also reference Richard Rohr and how you go from order to disorder to reorder. And I wonder if what Dorhauer is describing is a disorder period. And what one of the purposes and one of the perhaps challenges is that how do you make order, spiritual order, Christian order, maybe Presbyterian order, out of the disorder? How do you rejuvenate order out of all the competing ideas and wishes
Mhm.
and traumas that are out there?
So can you go forward 2 slides? Keep going. Keep going. Yes. So I'm going to leave you with this slide. I want you to imagine and think about what gives you hope. What is still here that gives you hope? What might be beyond the horizon? What's ahead of us that gives you hope? How might that look? Thank you.
So we actually were able to share the screen, and we also recorded this, so this will be available eventually. Next week, I will try to continue the energy that you brought here and the questions that John Dornhauer has raised. We'll delve a little more into what Church 2.0, which is kind of what we are describing in the Protestant Reformation and the last 500 years. And then what he describes as a Church 3.0. I don't really want to settle there too much because one of the points that he has is that Church 3.0 is something in the future that he doesn't have. It's not something you're targeting. It is a process, and it may not be a process that is completed for another 200 years. It is the reorder after the disorder. So there's that. And also, I think I really want to focus on, the new metrics. What do we look at in terms of our contributions? How do we serve a community? How are we serving a community at this point? Because it's not just, who shows up in the pews, but what we're doing outside the church. And I guess I would leave one more comment about, well, if we move to C2, what do we do with Lee?
Oh,
It was both and, I thought.
Yeah.
Either or.
or
Well,
couldn't
but-
we
but-
integrate
Right.
C2 pieces into our?
And how many
C-
services do you want to come to a week?
No.
No.
We integrate.
You don't have to get really dogmatic about it. There's probably a way to do it. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
And yeah, for me and for some of us, the music takes me to a spiritual place.
Yeah.
That it sometimes nothing else does. I just want to say one thing about the slide about how much change can we tolerate as a church. I think we also need to look at that individually and kind of understand maybe within ourselves that the only way to move forward is to be able to let go of some of the things we wanted that maybe in general the group doesn't, or we'll get stuck forever and no, we can't let go of this. No, we can't let go of that. And just look at it as part of the pain, but part of maybe the growth towards something new.
Right. I love theologian Phyllis Tickle wrote that every 500 years, the church has a rummage sale. And I'm thinking we're in the midst of a rummage sale right now. So I think that's important. The other thing is I know some people were having trouble getting the book. I've taken all the things out of here trying to. I've still written in it, but if somebody still needs a copy, you're welcome to have mine. Well, there was, but then there wasn't.
My Amazon order kept not.
Okay. So if anybody needs a copy, I'm happy to give it to you. Marilyn, do you need one? Thank you.
No, I turned it off.
I have a question for Grania. Hi, I have a question for you. I'm wondering what your granddaughter didn't like about the service. What Well, how would she change it?
How would she change our service? She would like it more lively, not so
Me
much
too.
talking, maybe more dialogue or more, just more, it
Such a
So-
postmodern.
definitely postmodern, yes.
Mhm.
She wasn't really specific, but she just likes the feeling, the sort of communication of love and in with liveliness in the African American church. And I had to agree with her in many ways. Y- uh, that's as far as I'll go right now. 'Cause I thought it out as well as I should.
Write it up first and hand the paper in next week.
I know in the past, as a child growing up in the Presbyterian church, they'd let us once in a while be ushers. And that was really special because we were part of the service. And we got experience and felt like somebody trusted us to do that job. So I think it's participation in different ways also.
Right, and worship is attempting to get young people involved in the service. They'll be doing the minute of remembrance this morning, and have been liturgists, and I look forward to having more of that in the service. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you, Nancy. Great job.